Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.
How are we doing, Kansas City? It is Friday, September 6th, and we are here on Red Friday, possibly the biggest Red Friday of Kansas City Chiefs history. All these Red Friday flags have sold out, earlier this morning. I am your host, Richard Smith, and with me tonight, as always, our senior NFL analyst, Chris Chavez, is with us. How are we doing tonight, Chris? Are you excited about this NFL season or what?
I'm fantastic. I'm super pumped. I am ready for this Super Bowl season to get started.
Hey, look, we are on the road to the Super Bowl. Now is the time. We are headed into week one, and Kingdom Radio has proud to announce that Pizza Shop Platte City is our new our sponsor. They are our lead sponsor and have really grabbed a hold of Kingdom Radio for the whole season here. We could not be happier. Frank Nigro, Amanda Nigro, thank you very much. We have live podcast there at Pizza Shop, and we actually have an event on 9/11 for the troops, 20% off. As well as raffles for Derek Thomas memorabilia. We also have Dante Hall memorabilia. All those are signed products. I'm also bringing a Derek Thomas legacy shirt as well. Look, Kansas City, we have quite a few podcasts live coming up, but I want to touch base a little bit on the Pizza Shop live podcasts. Week 2, we have the Oakland Raiders, and like I said, Wednesday 9/11 at 7 p.m., we have a live event for the 9/11 show. We have the Liberty Army Recruitment Center bringing out as many guys as possible, as well as Fort Leavenworth there in Kansas. So we're really bringing a big crowd. We've partnered up with the Army here, and we would love a huge turnout. Also, that being said, Sunday, the 15th at 1 p.m., there will also be a live podcast. We're doing all podcasts live for the away games there at Pizza Shop, but we want everybody to show up and get involved. And I think there's no better way to do this than to have these live parties at Pizza Shop and wherever else Kansas City will allow us to do this at. We're going to get some big hype. Week 7 at Denver, that's a big game. Monday Night Football. Was that September 14th at 6 p.m. Is another live broadcast, as well as that following Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And then to cap everything off, Week 10 at Tennessee, that'll be Wednesday, November 11th. We're going to continue the Derek Thomas, Dante Hall raffle giveaways, as well as a lot of other items. We also have some face painting. We have, like I said, we have the Army coming out. We're trying to get Miss Nicole out there as well. And then that'll carry on into 7 p.m. on Sunday, November 11th, which will be our last show there at Platte City. That'll be the Tennessee-Kansas City game. And that's where we're going to give away everything from our raffle when it comes to the Dante Hall and Derek Thomas memorabilia. So, also, I want you all to keep in mind, sorry, Chris, I'm kind of getting lengthy here, but there's some new merchandise available, and that's a big deal. Chris, I know you've seen this merchandise, and it's men's, women's, and children's T-shirts, as well as Kingdom Radio hoodies, and they are available right now, and I couldn't be more happy about this scenario, and it just makes sense for Kingdom Radio and the community of Kansas City. And with that being said, I would like to share that website with you so you can go directly to that and order items. There are 4 different colors: white, gray, black, and red. And you can go to https kingdomradio.itemorder.com/sale. And please go order your Kingdom Radio memorabilia. It turned out amazing. I couldn't be happier for what we are doing here with Kingdom Radio. And, we're getting a big turnout as far as merchandise is concerned. And with that being said, Chris, like I said, this is going to be lengthy, but we're going to get into the Around the NFL news. And with that being said, we kind of have a pre-recording that we haven't introduced yet. We'll get some audio on that, but we're going to go ahead and play that now to introduce us into the Around the NFL segment.
This is Around the NFL, brought to you by Pizza Shop Platte City. Go grab yourself a butcher block. Best meat lovers in Kansas City. Pizza Shop Platte City, proud sponsor of Kingdom Radio.
All right, Chris. So let's talk about this for a second. We got the Around the NFL segment, and we're going to talk about some Chiefs news, actually, because there's a lot going on in Chiefs Kingdom, especially today on Red Friday. We're going to touch base a little bit more on Red Friday here later in the podcast. But, Chris, you've been silent due to all of my rambling here, so please tell me about this Tyreek Hill extension. Let's start off with the Chiefs. What's going on here? We have a signing bonus. We have some guaranteed money, and he's locked through the 2022 season. Let's talk about this Tyreek Hill extension because this is the huge news in Chiefs Kingdom.
Yeah, so the Cheetah has been essentially tethered to the Chiefs for the next 3 years. For $54 million, roughly about $18 million per year. The Chiefs have a lot of protection into this contract due to the issues that stemmed from this offseason. But it's a fantastic deal for both sides and really leads a lot into Tyreek's future after those 3 years, that if he continues to perform and behave himself, well, he could be set up for another huge contract.
Right. And what I like about this deal right here is not only is he locked up through the 2022 season, this is a Chiefs organization-friendly deal. It's a protection for the Chiefs. I mean, we have a $5.8 million signing bonus, which is spread out through the entire contract. $35.2 million guaranteed. And I think that, the way Brett Veach is going here, we couldn't ask for a better scenario, the way he locked him in, especially when we have those guys coming in, through the back gate, like Patrick Mahomes, who we're going to have to sign, and hopefully Chris Jones. And we're not really sure where that's landing. But the Tyreek Hill extension was a massive deal for the Kansas City Chiefs and our future, especially going into the Super Bowl era that we call Patrick Mahomes.
No, absolutely. And the other thing I want to throw out there is that this deal makes Tyreek tied for the second highest paid wide receiver in the league. He's tied with Odell Beckham Jr., and both of them are tied behind Michael Thomas.
And you know what? Our deal compared to the Michael Thomas extension, I feel like we came way out on top compared to all these other teams. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind Odell Beckham Jr. I don't mind Michael Thomas. But Tyreek Hill is not a system player, which I would say Michael Thomas is. He is in more regards, to Odell Beckham Jr., but I think the man has just as much, if not more, talent. So I feel like we got this man at a good price. Moving forward for the future of our franchise, this was a highly favorable team contract. To where was Hill really looking for the money? Or was Hill looking to win a Super Bowl? And that's the big question here in Chiefs Kingdom. And I don't even really think it's a big question. I think we can answer that right now just by this contract. This man wants to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the other thing to also look at, not so much the money-wise, but the length of the contract. It ends, not necessarily just after, but it ends after the current CBA ends. And so I think that depending on how that falls out, there could be a lot more money available for the players, where Tyreek could end up getting a much bigger payday if that money becomes available. Well, it's kind of hard to really predict what's going to happen there, because there's a lot of other whisperings as to what's going to be demanded and required and requested from all parties involved. But I think that's going to work out for all parties involved from Tyreek and from the Chiefs when that contract does end.
So now, are you telling me that the arbitrary agreement could change to the point where our salary caps could raise like baseball or basketball?
Potentially. It's going to kind of depend on what the owners want from the players and what the players are willing to give up. There are rumblings about the owners wanting to go to an 18-in-game regular season and shortening up the preseason, more Thursday night football games. There's just a lot of rumors right now. Nothing's actually been released out to the media, but in order for that to happen, the players are going to want more money.
Absolutely. And, we are a few years away from that. And so let's hone in on this 2019 season a little bit here. I want to talk about some more big news outside of this Monday Night Football game that took place last night. I want to talk about a division rival. A team that is led by John Gruden, a team that is really at a kind of a controversial point in their franchise. And then they bring in a player like Antonio Brown, who, number one, wants to start a controversy over his helmet. And number two, then this man gets in a verbal argument with Mike Mayock at a practice on Wednesday, talking about a foot issue. A health issue. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with Antonio Brown. I realized that since then, everything has been cleared up, and Antonio Brown is projected to start week 1. But come on, what's going on with Antonio Brown? Are we seriously in a diva mode here with the Raiders? I mean, are they going to continue to allow this to transpire there under a John Gruden-led Raiders?
Oh, the roller coaster that is the Raiders.
So true.
If they got Antonio Brown thinking that they were going to get anyone else other than how he has acted ever since he came in, and they were delusional.
Right.
We saw a lot of this, not even a lot. We saw some of this in Pittsburgh. That's ultimately what led to him leaving town. And I have to admit, if the Steelers PR was able to keep all of this stuff under wraps and behind the curtains, those guys deserve a tremendous raise. Because he hasn't even hit the regular season yet.
Right.
And he has already had his name in headlines for 3 different occurrences.
Yes, Antonio Brown is doing nothing but causing problems for the Raiders.
Yeah, he honestly, with as much as he loves to see his name in headlines and headlights, he and Jerry Jones need to link up, because those two absolutely are soulmates in the realm of football.
I mean, if they're willing to trade Antonio Brown to the Cowboys, now we're talking. But let's look at Antonio Brown here. This guy is nothing but a problem causer, and I feel like the infamous Raiders franchise that is could have gone any other way. Al Davis passes away, and then we got the Davis Jr. underneath in the helm. No, I still look at him as an Al Davis. I don't look at him as any different. When I think of that man, I'm not going to say exactly what I think of him, but I feel like that, let's be honest, Antonio Brown fits the script there under a John Gruden team, and I don't care what anybody says. This is the Raiders. This is the Raiders that we know. This is the Raiders that we've always known. This isn't any different. It's just, how well will the franchise of the Raiders adapt to a diva like Antonio Brown. And, is he going to last through the season? Who even knows? This is a situation with the Kansas City Chiefs that is probably more of an asset than a setback.
Yeah, and the other thing two things to take into consideration as well is as we look throughout the rest of the season, the relationship between Derek Carr and Antonio Brown. Because Brown and Roethlisberger, or over the years, they had their disagreements, but toward the end, he was an absolute enemy of Roethlisberger. And I think that Derek Carr, let's see, how can I put this gently, lacks the mental fortitude to have that sort of battle with Antonio Brown.
Ooh, I agree with you, because there is no mental boundary with a player like Derek Carr like there is with a Ben Roethlisberger, who holds a lot of leverage in the Pittsburgh organization. And you're right about that. I think, I feel like in the Antonio Brown situation, if he played his cards right, he could go in there and run Oakland. But with that being said, he took the wrong approach. He carried the same attitude that he took away from Pittsburgh and brought it right into Oakland. And is that going to fit a John Gruden mold? Absolutely not. But at the same time, let's look at the flip script here. As a John Gruden-led team and how hard-headed John Gruden is, are you going to make Antonio Brown let you look like a fool?
Absolutely not. And especially knowing Gruden, when he has to always have the appearance that he's in control.
Yes. Do you think any other player would have got away with what he just got away with under a John Gruden-led franchise?
No, and Gruden
exactly
with a lot of those personalities in the past.
Exactly, but this is a guy that you cannot control. And I feel like that's going to be the issue for any team that holds an Antonio Brown in their franchise at this point. Like, this is a guy where you got to cut your losses. Like, this is a great talent, but what does he really bring to the table? What does he bring to the table as far as, he has his assets, but I feel like, the declines, the other side of Antonio Brown is something that, in my mind, if I was on top of a franchise, I wouldn't want to deal with it.
No, absolutely not. And especially as a GM from any other team looking at this, most of these guys seem to have some sort of respect for Mike Mayock.
Right.
And having watched the NFL draft over the umpteen years, watching football the last umpteen years, Mike Mayock is one of the few guys who is always consistently on point and has tremendous knowledge. And for Brown to attack him the way that he did, according to reports, definitely crossed some boundaries. But what really upset me, even more so than that aspect, was when he apologized today. He apologized to the team.
That was a lackluster apology. Honestly, I looked at that as more of a stretch to kind of rejuvenate his integrity there with the Raiders after what he just pulled. And that's one of those things, that was a desperation move. And with that being said, I mean, let's be honest, Antonio Brown is at a point where you've pulled so many horrible moves mentally. I mean, I don't even know how to put them with individual franchises and players and situations where it's put you into a point where, Antonio Brown, you've put your own back up against the wall, and I feel like you're proud of being that type of person that just puts yourself under pressure in a system where you could probably thrive.
Yeah, and let's say, for instance, best case, worst case scenario based on your point of view, after this season, Raiders cut him. What team in their right mind is going to look at taking him? It's only going to be a team that is desperate to become relevant and try to make a run at the playoffs. You're not going to have a team that's already established looking at bringing this guy in and saying, oh, we'll be able to handle him in our locker room. The Patriots have had a history of bringing in troubled players,
yes.
and I'll say more often than not, they're successful. I'm willing to bet that they aren't going to touch Antonio Brown with a 20-yard pole.
No, absolutely not. We're talking about teams like the Bills. We're talking about teams like the 49ers. We're talking about teams in desperation mode that would legitimately go out and pick this player up. I mean, let's think about Le'Veon Bell. Let's think about the Jets. I mean, we're talking about teams like this whose also backs are up against the wall, who probably have a more weak-minded GM mindset in their organization. And I feel like that's an extremely key aspect in an important fact to bring into the scenario is it does play down to that. There is some psychological mindset behind where these players are going, what conference they're going to be in, what division they're going to be in, and what teams are, producing, what teams are on the back end, what teams are seriously, let's talk about a team, like Miami or something. Let's pull some talent in the quarterback position from a team like that. It's just all a mindset. It's all psychology is what it is.
No, absolutely.
So with that being said, hey, look, we spent a lot of time on Antonio Brown, and I feel we're going to move on here. Look, and I understand Antonio Brown has been a big conversation here in the NFL, but we have more to talk about around the NFL. Let's talk about Ezekiel Elliott a little bit. He has had a contract extension for 6 years, $90 million, and I'm going to be the first one to say it. Look, I'm not a Dak fan. I don't believe in Dak Prescott at all whatsoever. That man to me is completely overrated. If he gets, whatever contract extension he has, I'm not even sure where that's at. But Ezekiel Elliott, real deal, 6 years, $90 million. In a way, I feel like they paid a little bit too much for him. At the same time, we're talking about Jerry Jones ball here. And this is a little different aspect compared to every other team in the league. We're talking about an owner who is kind of the epitome of all owners in the NFL and takes more of a GM, coach, player, every standpoint that he can. His hands are involved. But let's talk about Ezekiel Elliott and his contract of 6 years, $90 million. This dude is a fantasy football stud. Kind of take us away with that, Chris. What do you think about this signing?
I think that the entire series of back and forth between the two sides ends up being really ridiculous because the Cowboys had stated from the very beginning that they weren't going to set the market. They weren't going to overpay for a player, especially a running back. Zeke, who, if I want to quote Jerry Jones properly, it's ridiculous because then when it comes down to it, he signs a contract that sets the market. Makes him the highest paid running back, I believe, in guaranteed money. I mean, it's a deal that had Jerry Jones just come out and offered this in the very beginning, Zeke would have signed this deal.
Right.
And I think, kind of going back to what we were saying in the last segment, and Jerry Jones and Zeke probably had this all planned out so that Zeke could go away, get an extended vacation, and not have to deal with any sort of hits or extra work in preseason. He can come into the season 100% fresh.
Yes.
And put the Cowboys' name in the headlines every single week. Which
he has done. And let's be honest, there's a lot of back-end deals that happened here in the NFL that a lot of fans don't take heed to because we, take precedence over all these highlights and all these big-name players. And not that Zeke isn't a big-name player, but let's be honest. Like you just said, they realistically kept it under wraps and let things play out like they should and didn't throw it in the media. I know that ESPN made a big deal about it, but let's be honest. I mean, they're in the Cowboys organization. They just kind of let it play out and ride out like it should. Just like we did with the Tyreek Hill thing. I feel like we got an even deal like they did with Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Zeke signed contract that is twice as long. And to be honest with you, Chris, I'm going to throw this out there right now, and this is something that I didn't really hone in on before. That's an extremely long contract for a running back.
Yeah, and if I remember the structure of it correctly, the majority of the guaranteed money is in the first several years of the contract, and then I want to say it's the last year or two there's no more guaranteed money, and so if an injury comes up or he's not performing up to the contract, they can essentially cut ties and not have to continue to pay him, but they'll still take the cap hit. But it's a team-friendly contract for them.
So Jerry Jones is protecting the back end of that contract with the franchise and kind of giving a statement to Ezekiel Elliott saying, hey, perform or we will ship you off. Even if we have to pay a little bit of penalty to make that happen, it's not as big as, some huge guaranteed contract, that they could have handed out to him. But Jerry Jones is smart. I don't expect that to happen. But anyway, hey, look, we've touched base on the Ezekiel Elliott contract. Will that benefit the Cowboys? Absolutely, more so than this Dak controversy and everything is going on with him. I don't exactly believe in Dak Prescott. But Zeke, top 5 running back in the NFL. So with that being said, we are going to move on to our next segment.
This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions.
All right, this is a No Look Pass brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. This is where Chris and I bring up a question to each other to kind of pick each other's brains and see where our football knowledge is on the flight. So with that being said, Chris, what I'm going to ask you tonight is, this is my No Look Pass to you. What opponent on the Kansas City Chiefs 2019 schedule scares you the most and why?
That's a good question.
Damn right it is. Excuse my language.
You're good. There's definitely a couple games that concern me for different reasons. I'm not going to talk about the other ones. I'm just going to go to the one that I think is going to be the biggest, most impactful game, and that's the New England game.
I knew it.
Because after having lost to them twice in walk-off fashion last season, I think that, I'm concerned that the psyche of the Chiefs might be a little downtrodden, and they might view the Patriots as a immovable object that we just can't get past. Yeah. And depending on how we play that game, I think that could really change our philosophy and our momentum going into the playoffs to where potentially we might have to see them again.
Okay, so let me roll your mindset in another direction here, and not that I don't disagree with, not that I don't disagree with you here, but I feel like in a way you have an Alex Smith mindset on this game right here, because the way I look at this game for the Kansas City Chiefs, for Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, McCall Hardman, McCall Hardman is obviously a new addition, but any Chiefs player in this franchise has a personal vendetta against the New England Patriots. And the way I look at it is that game right there that you're talking about is the most critical, pivotal point in Chiefs franchise in the last fucking 50, in the last 50 years. I can't believe I dropped the F-bomb. Sorry about that, Chiefs Kingdom, but that's my passion come out. But that is the most pivotal game in Chiefs history, if you ask me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. It is absolutely a pivotal game.
So, and that's one of those things that I hope Chiefs Kingdom comes out and we do what we need to do. We take care of business, because we obviously were in another scenario last season where we kind of dropped the ball just a hair. But this is a new season. This is a 2019 season. I feel like we can take it to a team like the Patriots. And that is the most pivotal game. I can't argue with you on that one whatsoever, Chris. Like, that is the most pivotal game, and I feel like that is an imperative that we absolutely, drive that nail in the coffin home against the Patriots. So, with that being said, Chris, what is your no-look pass to me?
Okay, so this one is kind of a shout-out to other Chiefs Kingdom folks out there. For those of us who don't live in Kansas City, what exactly is Red Friday? What's it like? If I were to go there on a Friday for the first time, what would I expect?
Chris, that's an amazing question. I'm really, really happy that you asked that. And for anybody outside of Chiefs Kingdom and anybody who lives here in the Kansas City metropolitan area or any of the surrounding areas, Red Friday is an extremely celebrated day where everybody in Kansas City wears red. And then this particular day, before the first game of the season every year, at McDonald's and the participating McDonald's across the Kansas City area, there'll be certain merchants set up to sell the local yearly Chiefs flags, which this is the 60th year anniversary of the Kansas City Chiefs, and so we have the 60th anniversary flags, and that's something that's really important in Kansas City, and I don't think too many fans miss a beat when it comes to Red Friday. And so with that being said, I really hope that we pass this tradition on to other cities across the country, because I know we represent Los Angeles, California. I also know we represent parts of Florida. We also represent parts of Utah, Pennsylvania, Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have every surrounding state around Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, Arkansas, Kansas, and even Illinois. So those are things that we have to keep in mind, Kansas City. This is a big deal in Chiefs Kingdom, and I think that this is spread across the country and not stay within the Kansas City metropolitan area. And Chris, that was an amazing question, because it is a humongous deal in Kansas City what Red Friday is. If you're not wearing your red or your Chiefs attire on Red Friday, look, you need to find another place to live. So with that, that's my no-look pass back to you, Chris, because, hey, look, that was an incredible question, and I think that it's important for everybody in Chiefs Kingdom, no matter what network you follow, no matter what demographic you're in, to know just what Red Friday is and to get involved. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have my roommate, Courtney. She is actually on a plane flight. She might be in New York right now, but she has one of these Chiefs flags, and she's going to be standing in Times Square here in the next 24 hours representing the Kansas City Chiefs with that new Chiefs flag. So that's how important it is to Kansas City and how deep we go with that tradition of Red Friday.
Well, thanks for sharing that, man. Because having grown up in New Mexico, I've never been able to experience the Red Friday. I can constantly see it and I hear about it. I just never been able to experience it. That's good to know what to expect when I'm able to finally make it out there for one.
Absolutely. And Chris, I just want to challenge you to this as being the co-host of Kingdom Radio and all of our followers who love Chris Chavez and his analysis as our senior NFL analyst on Kingdom Radio. Let's bring that tradition to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because let's be honest, Chris, it's in your hands, my guy. It's in your hands.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I love that. That's the passion that we bring to the Kansas City Chiefs and to Chiefs Kingdom and the organization as a whole, no matter what demographic that we hold. So, with that being said, okay, we're going to move on just a little bit. And I want to ask you a question. Look, we're getting pretty lengthy here, but we have a lot of great topics tonight, and I want to ask you, Chris, do you see the Chiefs trying to wrap up a Chris Jones deal here mid-season or at the season's end? Is this a player we could possibly put the franchise tag on? Or are we going to find value in Chris Jones and possibly ship him off to regenerate some, high round draft picks here for years to come? What's your take on Chris Jones? Because we definitely put Tyreek Hill over, the Chris Jones scenario as far as contract extensions.
I definitely think that it's going to really depend on, let me jump back. I don't think that a deal is going to get done in early to mid-season. I think that any deal that does get made ends up latter half, or the very end of the season.
Yep.
Due to Chris Jones switching to the 4-3 defensive tackle position, as opposed to the nose tackle in the or defensive end in the 3-4. It's a new scheme, new expectations for him, and before the Chiefs make any sort of big investment in him, they have to see that he's able to produce in this new role. And what he's coming in with, coming from the 3-4, he's got a lot of clout and a lot of reputation that we're going to have to pay for, especially if he can pull it off this year in the 4-3 and still be a major contributor on defense.
Here's my thing with Chris Jones. And, as far as what he's done in the past for us, I can't argue with signing a contract extension. But here is my big deal with Chris Jones. Will he fall into this new system? And if he does, will he be more productive than Frank Clark and Alex Okafor? And look at K-Pass stepping up. There's, and there Xavier Williams. There's a lot of aspects to this Chiefs front four, front five, front whatever you want to, front three, however we line up, that puts Chris Jones subjective to possibly being a trade bait or somebody that can bring in some future talent to Kansas City, because our defense is already so far solidified that we have kind of captured a certain boundary where the Chiefs defense is that will catapult us, to that Super Bowl projection, which we have dreamed of in Chiefs Kingdom for the last 35, 40, 50 years. So with that being said, how much money will Chris Jones require? Does it make sense to the future of the Chiefs with adding the Honey Badger, Frank Clark, Okafor, Ogba, all these huge key aspects? Darren Lee. I mean, is this really a situation where the Kansas City Chiefs should be sweating Chris Jones, or should Chris Jones really be sweating on the Kansas City Chiefs?
See, and that's a tough question, because again, it goes back to how he performs this year, and hopefully he understands that. That's why the Chiefs didn't sign him this offseason. Is we are willing to make that investment, but we need to see him being able to perform in this new defense. And I think that if he doesn't perform in this defense, and or K-Pass ends up showing that he can be just as relevant or impactful on this defense as a Chris Jones, then there's a chance that we could potentially franchise tag him and then trade him in the offseason, looking to get back 2 first-round picks. And getting those picks will really help for us to let go of a lot of the one-and-done contracts that we have this season, and being able to transition into a more sustained defense moving into the future. I mean, imagine having 3 first-round picks on this defense, 1, possibly even 2 cornerbacks to solidify that secondary would be tremendous. Throw in another one at linebacker. I mean, that would be a GM's dream situation to have moving forward.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, you think about players like Colin Saunders, who's really progressing, as a formidable defensive player for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think, with our depth and where we're going, Chris Jones might be an expendable player. And then you throw in that Tyreek Hill extension for what it's worth, 3 years, $54 million, and we still have to pay Mahomes. We still have to extend Kelsey out. We're not going to let Kelsey go. If we let Kelsey go, I'll be extremely disappointed. And I think Kelsey is the type of player that will take a pay cut just to stay on, a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. But this is one of those things that I feel like Chris Jones is more of a chess piece than anything to the franchise of the Kansas City Chiefs and our future.
Yeah, it's really hard to disagree with you there. It's definitely a very confusing situation right now, and I think we just need more information to kind of see how everything's developing throughout the season.
Yes, and that's the thing is the development through the season, and even with the cornerback position. I mean, we brought in Claiborne, who was suspended for the first 2 to 4 games. What is it, Chris?
Oh geez, you got me on a brain fart right now, man.
You're all right. We'll call it the first 4 games, but then we look at our projected. Players that we would like to pick up on our franchise, and we're talking about Patrick Peterson. He's suspended the first half of the season. There's really not a lot of aspects in the cornerback position for us to go out and get excited about without, like I said earlier, kind of manipulating maybe a franchise that has, some talent in that position that needs it somewhere else. Kind of utilizing a weaker mindset GM to pull in the talent that we need. But with that being said, we locked in, Tyreek Hill. Now, we have to go after Patrick Mahomes. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is obviously 100% a bigger aspect, than a player like Chris Jones. But we've got a lot of work to do. I don't neglect, I don't look down on anything that Brett Veach and Andy Reid are doing. I trust their whole process. And with that being said, look, that's kind of our little Chris Jones discussion here. And I feel like we've touched base quite a bit on what could happen, the potentials, the backup. I feel like that we could be in a good position to kind of move Chris Jones around if the defense works like we feel that it should. So let's move forward a little bit here. All right, so we got the season opener coming up, Chiefs and Jaguars. I believe that is September 8th. Am I right about that? September 8th?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the September 8th, Chiefs and Jaguars in Jacksonville. We have a Jacksonville Jaguars-led team with a new quarterback, Nick Foles. There's some other new pieces. Leonard Fournette is coming back. We got some big things going on in Jacksonville. I can't lie. They have a formidable defense. I feel like this is going to be a big challenge for the Kansas City Chiefs and will show us just where our offense and defense stacks up. And to be perfectly honest with you, before I let Chris take off on this, because this man has done a ton of research on the Jags, and I can't wait to hear what he says, I feel like this might be a huge test for Patrick Mahomes and that led offense, because that Jacksonville defense is nothing to mess with. And I couldn't really be more thankful for a defense for us to head into the 2019 season against and really show us what we're working with, because that's a formidable defense. That's a formidable team whatsoever, and will kind of show Chiefs kingdom where we're moving here into the future with the 2019 season?
Yeah, so earlier when you asked me about the games on our schedule that I was most concerned about, this is definitely one of them.
Right.
The Jaguars last year, and really for the last 4 years, have had one of, if not the best defenses in the league year in, year out.
Right. And not alone, and let alone, who is their second receiver in their receiving core? Who is that? Can you tell me?
Chris Conley.
Exactly. Keep going, brother.
And it's just unfortunate that tremendous defense didn't have the offense to go with it.
Right.
Last year, I think that they really fell victim to not having their presumably star wide receiver in Marquise Lee with them at all the entire season. He was out injured, and so they never really got to see him on the field, and that really hurt their offense.
Was Lee the third receiver in New England? I mean, not New England, in New Orleans?
No, not Marquise Lee, no.
Where did he come from? And sorry, Chiefs Kingdom, I was wrong about that, but I want to know where exactly Marquise Lee comes from, because he kind of seems like a familiar name, and I could be wrong, but I want to know exactly what the Chiefs are going up against with this depth chart against the Panthers, because this is a huge game for the Chiefs.
I'm pretty sure that Marquise Lee was drafted in 2017 or 2016. I'm not sure of the exact year, but I'm pretty sure that the Jaguars drafted him.
Okay, fair enough. Now let me ask you this, Chris. Let's talk about Nick Foles a little bit, because we're talking about a guy who has realistically been a backup his whole career, but when the calling has come to him, this man has stepped up on such a high platform that nobody can argue with the fact that this man should be starting in the NFL. And let's be realistic, even with the Kansas City Chiefs, Nick Foles was a backup quarterback for the Chiefs and stepped in and had a few great games. So let me ask you, can Nick Foles pick apart a Kansas City Chiefs defense? Is this a man who really should be at the helm of, the Jacksonville Jaguars, because there's a lot of huge question marks when it comes to Nick Foles, and can he lead a team through an entire 16-game season throughout the playoffs, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Can he do it?
Well, I think anybody who hasn't seen what Nick Foles is capable of doing in winning the Super Bowl,
right?
Climb out from underneath your rock. He can string together some phenomenal football games.
Right.
But as we saw at the beginning of last year when Wentz was starting on the bench, he can also come out really cold.
Yes.
And look every bit the backup quarterback that he's been relegated to when he was with Philly. But with Philly, when he's coming off the bench, he comes out like Superman.
Yeah, he does too. But is that the system?
I can't say that it's the system, because when he was first with Philadelphia, the first go around, and Andy Reid had actually drafted him, and he started for 1 year. I believe it was under Chip Kelly. I could be wrong there. He actually put together a fantastic season.
Right.
I think he went, 13, 14, 15 games without throwing an interception, 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. Tremendous. And then the very next season, he disappears. And he goes a couple years and was basically contemplating retiring altogether from football. Well, Andy Reid brought him into Kansas City, talked him out of it, and essentially turned around his entire career. Goes to Philadelphia after a stint with the Rams and leads them to a Super Bowl.
And he does. And I will say, okay, so he proved himself as a step-in quarterback. As a quarterback who can legitly step in on an injury, play 8 to 10 games in a season, and formidably win your team a Super Bowl. Now, our question is, going into the 2019 season with him, signed to the Jaguars, will this man, Nick Foles, play a 16-game season complete and have amazing stats, lead this team to the playoffs? Because once a player like Nick Foles hits the playoffs, look out. Have we seen Nick Foles lead a team into the playoffs? No. So that's the big question. That's the big question. And I could be wrong here, but the guy's a step-in quarterback. Probably the best I've ever seen in my life. Can he run it for a full season? We're about to find out, Kansas City, and we're going to be the first team to play a Nick Foles-led Jaguars with a Leonard Fournette, with a Marquise Lee, with a Dede Westbrook, and with a former Chief, Chris Conley. So, with that being said, James O'Shaughnessy, their tight end, I feel like that they might just have a decent team. Their defense is always good. They definitely have some great assets on their defense. But here's the thing, Kansas City. I don't care if you're Nick Foles. I don't care if you're Marquise Lee. I don't care if you're Leonard Fournette. Number one, you're not Tyreek Hill. Number two, you're not Travis Kelce. Number three, I'm not sure if anybody kind of picked up on this little thing real quick in the last week, but you're not LaShawn McCoy or Sammy Watkins or Travis Kelce in any respect whatsoever. Your offense does not stack up against Kansas City Chiefs offense. The defense, I feel like we might be on the same territory with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do they have an edge over us? Absolutely they do. 100%, because our defense has not sculpted itself and polished its craft. I feel like in Jacksonville they have. Special teams, well, it's hard to find any team in the NFL that really tops the Chiefs in special teams, so I think we'll have that edge. So with that being said, Chris, let me hear a little bit deeper on your analysis of the season opener, where we stand, and maybe a prediction here. Let me know, Chris.
All right, so I think this is going to be my chance to get a little long-winded, but feel free to jump in at any time, man.
Go for it, bro.
Okay, so what we should expect is to see a lot of spread formations out of our offense. We're going to be using this to create space and isolate the quarterback wide receiver matchups.
Fair enough.
As well as we're going to see a lot of movement pre-snap to discover whether they're in a zone or in man. If they're running zone, we're going to move players around to create the mismatches that we want. If they're in man, and Mahomes is going to make that read and then know who he needs to hit and who's going to have the matchup that he's looking for or where to go with the ball.
Okay, hold on a second. So look, you brought up a great point, Chris. I look at this game with the Jaguars as one of those games, and Patrick Mahomes had touched on this in the offseason as something he was going to work on. This is going to be a breakdown, check down type of game for Patrick Mahomes. The big play is not going to be there every single time, and this is where Patrick Mahomes straight out the gate is going to utilize those neurologies that he said he was honing in on as far as hitting those checkdowns or those breakdown plays, and I think that's critical to what you're explaining right now, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then what I'm also really looking forward to is our running back versus their linebacker matchups, because they have some tremendously athletic linebackers.
Right.
They're a little young on the outside, I think everybody and their mother knows who Miles Jack is. I mean, the guy is absolutely a beast.
He is a beast.
And they just signed him to an extension. But I expect for us to really focus on wearing down their linebackers over the course of the game, making them run around a ton, chasing the running backs. And this is going to be where our running back by committee is really going to be utilized to a T, because those linebackers, they're not going to be able to sub out because they don't have the depth at linebacker, or that they should have. But our running backs, we can go 3 deep and still have anybody on the field, whoever's there, who can take it the distance at any time that they touch the ball.
Right, which is a huge aspect. And I also want you, Chiefs Kingdom, to keep in mind, let's elaborate on that a little bit. If they don't have the defense to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs, let's say we run a run heavy, first quarter, a run heavy third quarter, but in between we're doing the dump off plays and we're doing the screens and the end arounds that'll really catch this team off guard. I feel like that we legitly are in a position to, if Andy Reid pulls up the perfect game plan, we could have Jacksonville on their heels all day with the speed, the talent, the defense, Spags, everything, the special teams. We could legitly have Jacksonville on their heels all day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always going to be in the cards for the Chiefs with the offensive skills that we have and the talent. We should always have that in our repertoire as far as being able to always outrun and outgun any team, regardless of how good their defense is. The only thing that's going to really make that happen or disallow that to happen is going to be scheme. Right. And whether we dial up the right schemes against whoever we play. Which, going into that aspect of this game, the only way that the Jaguars really have a chance to beat us is if they control the clock. If their defense can truly shut us down and keep us from hitting the open wide receivers, even in the underneath stuff. I mean, you need to expect a big game from D-Rob and Hardman in this game, or potentially they move D-Rob out to the second wide receiver spot and move Watkins into the slot. Yes. That might be a way for us to really utilize some mismatches, because Bouye out on the outside opposite Ramsey, he's just as much of a Pro Bowl cornerback as Ramsey is.
Right. So, okay.
So
go ahead.
If we can with Watkins, I think that would really help free up the rest of the passing game.
And see, okay, I love how you took that perspective onto the offensive side of the ball. And I really couldn't agree with you more. But I'm going to move on to the defensive side of the ball and what Jacksonville brings to the table and what we have to shut down to make sure we solidify a win for the first week of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. I personally feel like that, number one, obviously we have to shut down Leonard Fournette. Obviously we have to shut down Nick Foles. Those two aspects right there, Nick Foles and Leonard Fournette. Okay, so if we can get the run game shut down, Foles is going to pass more. Who's he going to pass more to? A player that knows the system in Kansas City like Chris Conley? Absolutely. You think they're not listening to Chris right now? You're a fool. So my thing is, we shut down Conley, we shut down Foles, and we shut down Fournette. I feel like we have a formidable chance to legitimately, I wouldn't say shut the Jaguars out, but embarrass them at home in the season opener.
Yeah, and the other aspect that's really going to allow us to do that is, and it's kind of hard to really be happy about this, but the Jaguars' starting left tackle is out for the game.
Yes.
And his backup is doubtful at the moment. So there's a very strong chance that Frank Clark is going to be going up against a tackle who has never played a professional snap before, but was drafted and has been developed to play guard.
Oh my. All right, so hold on. Let's look at this aspect for a second. Because when I think about this and I think about, a veteran being out and a rookie being put in his place who's never played that position in the NFL, and we put him up against Frank Clark. Let's look at the bigger aspect here. Let's look at the Steve Spags type of scenario. That man's not just going to go up against Frank Clark. That man is going to go up against Alex Okafor. That man is going to go up against K-Pass. That man is going to be put to the test in every situational way possible in a football scheme, because we have a brilliant mind in Steve Spags, and he's going to hone in on that weakness just like we do in every facet of the organization, from GM, head coach, to coordinator. And I feel like what you said is a formidable asset to, the thought process as a Kansas City Chiefs and where we're going to the future. But I just wanted to kind of touch base on that and say, hey, I feel like we have that covered.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if Clark is the only one to stay on that side and wear that kid out, expect a huge game from Clark.
Yes, absolutely.
If the scenario plays out right, I could absolutely see Frank Clark getting 3, possibly even 4 sacks in this game.
It could be ridiculous. And with that being said, let's leave it at that excitement level, because the defense could show up against a team like this. Our offense is absolutely going to show up, because that's just how we roll in Chiefs Kingdom for the last 5 seasons here. And special teams, obviously, Dave Tobe has that in line, and he has honed in on being the best special teams coordinator in the league. So with that being said, we're going to move on to predictions here, Chris. Let me ask you, this is the Chiefs home opener. Sorry, not home opener, but season opener, 2019, Chiefs Jaguars. This is probably our most exciting season in Chiefs Kingdom to look forward to what we have coming. So give me a prediction, Chris. Tell me what you think, and are we heading into week 2 with a win?
I'm definitely going to go with we're heading into week 2 with a win. I think that Chiefs win 31-21, but it's not going to be as close as the score sounds.
So what, you think Jacksonville will come back in the fourth quarter after we have sealed the victory and kind of, maybe score a touchdown or a field goal at the end to make it a little bit closer than it actually was on the scoreboard?
Yeah, I think it'll be 31-14, and then on the last drive, maybe the second to last drive, they're able to put another one into the end zone. But it'll just be more like garbage time touchdown as opposed to an actual impactful touchdown.
Right, and I feel like we'll have a lot of that coming up in this season. So, my prediction, I'm going to go with the Chiefs 42 and the Jaguars 17. I feel like that the first half might be a little bit closer than Chiefs Kingdom would like to admit. It won't be as comfortable as we would like. But like we've seen in the last 3 years in an Andy Reid-led offense, Patrick Mahomes, all those key aspects, and the defensive players that we brought in, I feel like the second half, Kansas City is going to hone in on their defense. We're also going to continue this trend that is Patrick Mahomes and every utility player, big playmaker that we have in the offense, and we're going to cash in. So like I said, it's going to be 42... 17 is that what I said? Sorry.
No, you're good.
So I look for the Chiefs to have a huge victory over the Jaguars here, and I couldn't be more happy about the contract extension of Tyreek Hill. It is due, like we said, it is a 3-year, $54 million contract. Signing bonus spread out over the deal. So that is a huge deal in Chiefs Kingdom. Next, we would absolutely like Chris Jones to get done. And most and foremost, Patrick Mahomes. Chris, would you like to say anything else on the broadcast tonight before we let Chiefs Kingdom get back to their regular schedules? Because it is Friday, and check it out, Chiefs Kingdom. We have Saturday, and we're rolling into Sunday. The first it's the season opener, Kansas City. We're rolling into the season here. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, just a couple other things I want to touch on. The Jaguars' lone weakness on their defense, or their biggest one anyways, is their outside linebackers. They have a third-round rookie starting, as well as a second-year, seventh-round pick starting on their outside. With the way that Reed loves to mess around with picking up on the mismatches, I think that those two positions are going to be screaming for us to take or utilize those mismatches and test those guys early and often.
And I love the way you think, and that's that GM mindset coming from our NFL analyst, Chris Chavez. And look, you're right. I can't argue with that whatsoever. And, if we have some guys sitting out there on the bench and we can utilize, our assets as far as our side of the ball, I feel like we can come out on top. Is Jacksonville a tough team? Absolutely. Can the Chiefs beat a Jacksonville Jaguars team led by a Nick Foles? For sure. Now, my next solid point that I want to make before I give Chiefs Kingdom a break and we let you all hit the hay for the evening or whatever it is you're doing. Here's the thing. The Kansas City Chiefs, no matter what, overall, up and down, the front office, our depth chart, our head coach, all of our coaches, all of our defensive, offensive coaches, coordinators, everything falls underneath that. Do we have the team to beat the Jaguars? Absolutely. Is this a huge test for Andy Reid and what we have to lead into this NFL season as far as a formidable Super Bowl contender? Yes, this is a huge game, Andy Reid, Kansas City, and Chiefs Kingdom. We need to prevail over a team like this, and we need to put it behind us, and we just need to move forward. Week 1, we have predicted a win. Chris and I agree we will take this win. I'm sure a lot of Chiefs Kingdom agree we'll take this win. And with that being said, Kansas City, hey, this is the start of the season. This is week 1. Get excited. We have a lot of football ahead of us, and this is just the beginning. And I couldn't thank all of you more enough than to tune in to this broadcast. And look, I also want to thank Pizza Shop Platte City and the Liberty, Missouri Army Recruiter Station, Chris Chavez, Arrowhead Update, Dylan Humphreys. There's a lot that goes into this. Michael Voss. There's a lot. Wayne, I really appreciate you. Wayne Bush. The Vapor Lab. There's really a lot of people that are going into this, and I could not thank them enough. And I got to throw a shout-out to all my sponsors. Chris, Albuquerque, New Mexico, you are a school teacher. You are one of the center forces of everything that is Kingdom Radio, and I could not thank you enough.
Thank you for having me on, and it's always a pleasure.
Hey, all the time, bro, all the time. And I'll tell you what, our next goal is to get you up here to Kansas City and keep presenting this amazing Chiefs content because, hey, here at Kingdom Radio, we present the best content, and it's hands down. And I'm sure all of our viewers will agree, all of Chiefs Kingdom will agree, and we're just going to keep it up, Kansas City, because of all for you. This is Kingdom Radio. I am your host, Richard Smith. Chris Chavez is a co-host. Thank you for coming on, Chris. We really appreciate all of your content. You all have a great night, Kansas City. Hey, we will speak with you soon. This is Red Friday. Go Chiefs. Chiefs Jacksonville. We will come out on top. Hey, you all have a great night, Kansas City.